Okay, hello and welcome to this GarrettCom training presentation on how to use the graphical user interface on the 6K switch. Basically how you will use this is you will use a web browser like Internet Explorer or Mozilla Firefox to connect to the switch using an IP address. The switch currently has the IP address 192.168.1.1 and we're going to use Internet Explorer now to open it up and try to make a connection to it. Okay, so we type in the IP address 192.168.1.1 into the address bar of Internet Explorer, and we come up with a security warning just to say that this is a secure website. You need to be aware that is this website from the company you think it is, and it's from GarrettCom, so we know it's safe. So let's go continue to website. Then we get this problem. And the reason we get this problem is that the graphical user interface on the switch uses a Flash application, so we need to download that. So I'm going to show you how to do that here. Okay, so I just need to enable my wireless adapter, and I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so I'm back. I've enabled my wireless connection. I'm going to bring up the internet. I'm going to type in Flash player download, re-download. Connect to the first link, and I'm just going to go here, download now. Get to the Adobe website, look for Adobe Flash Player. I don't like the free toolbar, I particularly hate Google toolbar, just personal preference. Agree and install. You get the security warning pops up and says install this add-on. So basically what the Flash Player is an additional bit of software that you install for your browser, which allows your browser to be able to handle some of the more complex graphics and animations you might get in some websites. Now as the GUI is a web-based program for the switch, we need this particular extra functionality, but as you can see it's very easy to install, nice and straightforward. Just follow the instructions, let them run through. This doesn't take too long at all. I thought it'd be best just to show you how this whole process would work. And that's it done, installed. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to disable my wireless again, just to prevent any conflicts. And you don't have to do this. It depends what IP addresses things have been given out on, and your personal setup. I just like to do it to make my life easier. So if we open up the GUI again, the web browser, this is Internet Explorer, type in 192.168.1.1, which is the IP address we gave the switch in the previous video. If you have the switch straight out of the box and you haven't touched it, and you want to know what IP address it uses, by default it's 192.168.1.2. If you connect to that IP address, you will be able to get to this graphical user interface without any changes to the switch at all, straight out of the box. Because we changed it to 1.1, we'll be using that one today. Again, we get the standard security warning. Really don't worry about it. It's just because this particular switch, like all the GarrettCom switches, uses HTTPS, which is the secure version of HTTP. So web traffic is all encrypted so that you can get secure access to all your switches using the graphical user interface. It's very similar to be able to, the difference between Telnet and SSH is the difference between HTTP and HTTP secure. Now it just loads up straight away. So all we needed to do then was just download Adobe Flash Player, and now it comes up straight away. The username and password is manager, and then manager, and here we are in the GUI. So my screen is slightly smaller than yours will be, just to make sure these videos which I'm recording are a manageable size. So we're going to have to do a bit of a scrolling tour. But this is the GUI. So we have secure web management. In this section here we have an option to log out, if we need to save any changes, if we need to refresh the contents of the GUI, any help, below that we have a visual display of the front of the unit. This will be different depending on which switch you have. Obviously the more ports you have, the more ports will be displayed. We can see here that SFP ports look a bit different. Standard 10100 copper ports look different, and again, depending on the physical switch, what modules you have installed, this will represent that. So it kind of gives you a virtual what you would see if you happen to be on site in front of the switch looking at it, even though you could be hundreds of miles away sitting in a nice comfortable air-conditioned office. Down here we have, below that we have some of the important information, such as the IP address of the switch, its subnet mask. If we had a default gateway configured, that would be configured here too. The MAC address of the switch, how long the switch has been up for. This has only been up and running for 2 hours, and the boot mode, and we'll come to that later, what that means. Down here in the bottom left hand corner we have the version of the switch operating system, which is version 4.1.7 at the time of this recording. In a subsequent video we'll be upgrading that to the latest version at this time, which is 4.1.9. This on the left hand side is where the meat and potatoes is. So the graphical display just takes you back to this welcome page with the graphical interface here. The left hand side has a menu tree which you can expand and contract. So if you see a plus, you can expand it. If you see a minus, you can contract it. The green means it's a feature here. It means a particular menu to do a particular job. So we have things which set the switch up and things which control how the switch behaves in configuration. So administration, configuration menus here. As we walk through the next subsequent videos, we'll be talking about each of these items in turn. So this is basically just to give you a quick overview of what you have in the GUI. So basically we can do 9 jobs out of 10 from the graphical user interface. There are a few exceptions, however. 1 or 2 of the more advanced features can only be done by the command line. Having said that, as I said, 9 times out of 10 most of the jobs can be done with the GUI. It's a nice friendly user interface, and I quite like it. So that completes this video in terms of how to access the switch via the GUI. Again, you just need Internet Explorer or Firefox. Type in the IP address of the switch into the address bar. Make sure you download Flash. If you haven't, just download it just as I showed you and install it as I showed you. If, however, you want to set the IP address to a different IP address, suppose we use the default, I'll show you quickly how to do that here. So we need to go to administration, and in the administration tree we have the system menu. That brings up this screen here, which is by default read only, so we can't make any changes here. So if we want to change the contents of these values here, we go to the edit button, and the options here are displayed for you. So if you want to change the IP address here, you can just type in anything you want, 1.12, 10.10.10.17, whatever you want, whatever you need for your particular network. We'll leave it at 192.168.1.1. If you want to enter a default gateway, which is the IP address of a router that you would use if you wanted to get off of your local network, you could enter that here. So 192.168.1. So let's call it 1.254. And the boot mode is: are you going to manually assign the IP address like we just did? Are you going to rely on DHCP to do it, to give you an IP address? Are you going to rely on bootp to give you an IP address? Or are you going to choose auto, which basically cycles through these 3 options and gives you tries each one in turn to see which one works? So we'll leave it at manual, and by default it's actually set to auto, but we want to change that to manual here. Other information, we can give the switch a name, so lab switch 1. We can also change the contact information, for example support at GarrettCom. As we are GarrettCom Europe, we would be garrettcom.co.uk, and our location would be Gosport in United Kingdom. Okay, so just click OK, and you can see those changes have taken effect. And if you notice, the floppy disk drive in the top right hand corner went to red. The reason it's red is that you've made changes to the configuration file which you need to make permanent. If you want to save those changes, click on that button, confirm you want to save them away, and once that's completed, click OK to say yes, it's all done. And we can see that the disk has gone green again. Green is good, red is bad. If you make any changes, do remember to save them, because if you lose power, all those changes will be stored in RAM. RAM is volatile, so when you lose power, you lose all those changes. So if you save it, it saves it to kind of like the hard drive of the switch, the flash memory. So it's nice and safe. So you lose power, those changes will still be there when the switch powers back up. So this completes this video. I hope this has been interesting, and on behalf of GarrettCom, I would like to thank you for your time, and goodbye.